feast your eyes on Dr. Lim as we begin Module 2. So let's give her a hand as she starts the Module 2.
Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back. Just now we did not go in detail on the SDGs, and also I mentioned that 90% of the SDGs contain human rights elements. So we'll just run through the SDGs now. As you know, there are 17 SDGs, 169 targets, and 242 indicators, which countries will have to measure and fill in the indicators to show how much they have achieved. And so the first SDG is no poverty. The targets include eradicating extreme poverty, implementing social protection measures, ensuring equal access of men and women to economic resources. So these are the related human rights elements are right to adequate standard of living, as mentioned in the UDHR, as mentioned in the International Convention on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, as well as on child rights. And then you have the right to social security, and you also have a CRPD for rights of people with disabilities, and then it's also related to CEDAW, women's equal rights. So we can see that one target alone, one goal alone, is related to many human rights treaties and elements and so forth. So when we have a target number one, eradicate poverty, extreme poverty. So extreme poverty here would, for Malaysia, would mean half of the poverty rate. And the poverty level in Malaysia is has been raised to 2,108. So half of that is like 1,100. So people with below that level of income is considered in extreme poverty. So at the moment we have about 130,000 of them, and the government is trying to target to lift them out of poverty, and then to implement social protection measures. We have a lot of people having not enough in their EPFs. We have a lot of people who are outside the formal working sector, the gig sector, informal sector, self-employed people who do not have any EPF accounts, and there are many other, social welfare programs which are not properly implemented and so forth. So our poverty rate is very high in certain areas, although the national average is about 0.4, but then we are classifying under the P40, N40 and T20. So these groups are still, in very desperate situation, especially in Sabah, with the highest poverty rate of 19.8%, Kelantan 13%, Sarawak 11%, and some villages, some districts in Sabah are even up to 45-50% in poverty. So the government really has to take measures to alleviate this extreme poverty. And then we have SDG 2, end hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. So the targets include ending hunger and malnutrition. This is quite a serious problem, even though Malaysia is not a poor country. We have children, about 20% suffering malnutrition, about 20% suffering stunting, and of course we have the highest rate of obesity, of diabetes, and all these non-communicable diseases. And stunting and malnutrition among children is very serious because they will be impacted for life. once you're stunted, the brain cannot work as normal, and they are physically, mentally, they are affected. And improving agriculture production, of course, we have kind of shifted to plantation crops a long time ago. So now we don't have a lot of land for. We have about 6 million hectares for palm oil, about 1 million for rubber, and only about 1 million for food crops. So it is important that we look after food resilience as well, and we are importing about 63 billion ringgit a year for food. And it's not that we are short of land. We have a lot of abandoned land. We have sufficient area to grow, but we have a lot of structural problems like land tenure and all these other problems which we need to resolve. And then of course we can go into modern agriculture. Yeah. So this is related to UDHR as well as the Economic, Social and Cultural Rights Convention. And SDG 3 is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being at all ages. So targets include reducing maternal mortality, ending preventable child deaths, ending AIDS, reducing AIDS and other diseases, health coverage, essential medicines affordable, sexual and reproductive health care, vaccine research and access to medicines. So I think our healthcare is very good, but there are certain areas we need to improve, like maternal mortality, which is surprisingly high at about 29 per 100,000 mothers, because OECD rate is about 6, we are 29, so we really have a lot to do to reduce maternal mortality rate. And quality education, inclusive and equitable quality education, and promote lifelong learning opportunities. This will include universal access to pre-primary, primary and secondary education, improve vocational skills, training of teachers and so forth. MDG stated access to education, but and SDG stress on quality education. So the key word here is quality. Are we providing quality education? So this is a very serious consideration which the government has to consider when how to improve our education system. And fifth SDG is on gender equality, to include eliminating discrimination and violence against women and girls, value unpaid work and domestic work, ensure full participation of women, access to reproductive health care, and equal access of women to economic resources. And this is actually been done for a long time, but it is a really uphill task. I mean, valuing unpaid work, domestic work, I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, but how is it going to happen, and also full participation of women. Even in the coming elections in the 6 states, there are 245 election candidates, but only 71 women. That's only 12%. So that will translate into membership in parliament as well. I mean, into the state assemblies. So this is, it's a really uphill task. SDG 6, clean water, includes ensuring universal and equitable access to safe, affordable drinking water, sanitation and hygiene, reducing pollution, increase water use efficiency, promoting participatory management of water and sanitation services. I think we Malaysia has a very good supply network supply of water, except for Kelantan and Sabah. And of course, we need to increase water use efficiency. Please don't waste water. And the other thing is the non-revenue water. You know, our system is very old, pipe system, and a lot of leakage, a lot of wastage of treated water is wasted. So in some states, it's up to 30-40%. Imagine of water, treated water from reservoirs, from treatment plants, all wasted through broken pipes and other broken infrastructure. So that is a huge area that we need to address. SDG 7, access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. So we should be really going for renewable energy. I think we are quite slow in this because Malaysia is one of the biggest exporter of solar panels, and yet we are not the leading producer of solar energy. And 8, decent work and economic growth to improve resource efficiency in production and consumption, full and productive employment and decent work for all, and eradicate forced and child labor and trafficking, protect labor rights, including those of migrant workers, and increasing access to financial services. And SDG 9, to build resilient infrastructure, employment generating industrialization, access to financial services and markets, innovation and technology transfer, and increasing access to ICT. Number 10, reduce inequalities to promote higher growth rates for the D40s, promote social, economic, and political inclusion, reduce inequalities in opportunities and outcomes, ensure social protection for all, securing participation in economic decision-making, facilitating migration and reducing transaction costs for migrant remittances. So it is related to eradication of poverty, of course, for the D40, but we also need to promote higher growth for them. So recently, the government was talking about increasing wages for workers and making the workers' payment to workers to raise it from 35% to 40%, but then it has come down to 32% in reality, because it's not something that you can done in a vacuum or just because you order it, because wages are based mainly on productivity. If the worker cannot produce that amount, the employer cannot pay that level of salary to him. Otherwise, the firm will be making losses. But then we have the extra dimension of foreign workers who are, because we allow such huge numbers to come into the country, they are also depressing wages. So there are many reasons as to why our wages have remained so low. And also employers have an option to get foreign workers instead of using local workers. So it needs a more integrated approach to solve this problem. And SDG 11 to make the sustainable cities and communities is to ensure access to housing, basic services, and public transport for all, participatory planning of human settlements, safeguarding cultural and natural heritage, and strengthening resilience to disasters. So all these SDGs, as you can see, are related to so many human rights conventions and declarations and so many other, you know, UN recommendations. And SDG 12 is to ensure sustainable consumption, achieving sustainable management and efficient use of resources, improving waste management, promoting sustainable public procurement, ensuring access to information, and building capacity for sustainable development. So efficient use of natural resources, we need to be mindful. Improving waste management. This is very, very serious. We waste a lot. Even food alone, I think in KL, we waste about 17,000 tons a day. You know, so why do we waste so much? And we produce food and many people are not having enough food and we are importing a lot of food. And this amount of wastage is really not, sustainable. And of course, promoting sustainable public procurement. This is a huge hole in the budget. You know, we have public procurement every year. The auditor general comes up with his reports of how much wastage and contracts that are bloated in value, in so much corruption and so many ways of cheating the government through the public procurement process. So this big hole really needs to be tapped. And ensuring access to information. Of course, we need the information to be shared more. The government should not clamp down information on certain things that citizens should know, and also building capacity for sustainable development. Because as you are aware, also many people are not aware of sustainable development and how to go about it. So raising awareness, giving education is very important for everybody to participate in also achieving the SDGs, because it is a whole of nation approach. And SDGs 13 is climate action to strengthen resilience and adaptation to climate change and natural disasters, including in marginalized communities, and implementation of the Green Climate Fund. So even in the face of all the climate change and natural disasters, you can see G20 meeting in India, just many countries there still denying climate change and still not agreeing to cut down on emissions and so forth, until their house is burned down, or when will they acknowledge that action is needed. And SDG 14, life below water, to reduce marine pollution, conserve coastal ecosystems, coastal marine areas, and fish stock, security market access for small-scale fishes, protection of marine diversity. So the world ocean has been really overfished. You have the huge fleets from Japan and European countries fishing down all the way to Antarctica for their whales and all sorts of resources they can get. And also, the net fishing all over the ocean. They scoop up everything from the ocean and just take what they want and throw all the others back. So that's why recently the Deep Sea Convention was launched to protect 30% of the world oceans. And SDG 16 is a life on land. This we need to protect and restore and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, manage forests, combat desertification, halt reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. So we need to have a sustainable management of freshwater, mountain ecosystems and forests, combat halting that biodiversity loss, combat poaching and trafficking of protected species. That's why when there's money to be made, people will do all sorts of things. So enforcement is really very important. And SDG 16, of course, is to promote peace, justice, and strong institutions. We shall go into detail in our next module on SDG 16. And finally, SDG 17, to strengthen means of implementation and revitalize global partnership for sustainable development. We need to strengthen domestic and international resources, debt sustainability, technology transfer, and capacity building, promote trade, enhance policy and institutional coherence, respecting countries' policy space, promote multi-stakeholder partnerships, and set up measurements for progress with disaggregated data. So this is, a very fast rundown on the 17 SDGs. Would you have any questions?
Hi everyone. Sorry for being late. I'm Belle, pronounced as she, her, hers. And hi Dr. Lin, thank you for the presentation. And let me introduce myself first. Okay, so I'm a researcher at University of Malaya. So I'm doing research for transgender women through healthcare, and I collaborate with Yale University and University of Connecticut. And then I'm also appointed as a country coordinating mechanism under Global Fund and Ministry of Health Malaysia last October. So my question is it question and also feedback to SDG 1, 5th, and also 10th. So SDG 1, no poverty, is stated that every equal access, and then blah 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 blah, then to men and women. So for me, it's a quite binary forms, because it is limited to men and women, where I think we have quite a number. I think also research data that shows that what a key affected population as minorities group in Malaysia is a lot. Transgender women itself, I think we have more than 100,000 in Malaysia. So I think that it's better if we can resentence or restructure the explanation of the SDG 1 to men and women, to every individual, as it's again back to basic human right. And then SDG 5th, gender equality, also I think mostly focusing on women and girls. So my question is, where is gender neutral and also trans people located in the SDG, right? And then the third thing is SDG 10, reduce inequalities, right to non-discrimination. I think this is also, we need to include the key affected populations, that is LGBTQIA community. But we know that if we want to talk, or we want to discuss, or we want to present our data and our findings, I think we need to avoid the terms of LGBTQIA community. And I've been informed that if we want to write a proposal or grant, we need to use a key affected populations rather than we use LGBTQIA community in Malaysian context, of course. So yeah, so these three comments, why I made these three comments, because we working closely with Ministry of Health, and we do have data, and in HIV field, I think SDG 1, 5, 10, 3 are applicable. All right. So and we do, and if you can see the media right now, they always say that okay, men who have sex with men actually contribute to 70 and no more than 50% to the newly HIV cases, infection cases in Malaysia, and also in HIV/AIDS sexually transmitted infection fields on and SOGI SC. Including with giving PrEP, right, pre-exposure prophylaxis. I think kita memang menerima tentangan yang sangat hebat from the three state, which is Kelantan, Terengganu, and also Perlis. So yeah, my question here is, can be this SDG protect us all? Because I think we don't have a non-discrimination act to protect our key affected populations. Yeah. Is that long? Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for your feedback. Of course, these issues have been raised in many individual forums, and we know the stand of the government, and we know the stand of the religious departments in Malaysia, and but that's not to say that there is going to be discrimination in the SDGs. So, as you know, SDG 5 is on gender equality. So, the emphasis will be on how to protect women and girls. And I would say that, the SDG was planned in 2012. We have the MDGs finishing in 2015. So from 2012, we already started to draft the SDGs. And in those days, there wasn't a lot of consciousness about the LGBT community. So it was drafted like this, just like I mentioned just now, the UDHR. When it was first drafted, it was all men are born equal, until somebody changed it to all human beings are born equal. So something like this is, I think SDG 5, you can say that because it is a gender equality SDG, it will definitely focus only on women and girls. But for the others, SDG 1, SDG 10, the access to resources is actually for all. It does not mention any particular gender. It will protect everyone, and that's how it should be. And of course, the HIV and all that. This one is very well known for a long time. The MSM, men having sex with men and sexually transmitted, in Kelantan is very, very high level of cases. And we have a lot of women who come in to say that they've been infected by their husbands who have sex with other men. So it is a very complicated system. I mean, a very complicated situation. So it's not just one, we can specify this one group only do this group only wants to do this, but it's all mixed. So the most important thing is awareness, teaching them how to avoid, how to prevent, and how to, take care and recover. The most important thing is to reduce the number of cases. So it doesn't matter by whom. Thank you.
Sorry, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. I may have missed this, but where exactly does freedom of and from religion actually come within the goals of SDG, please? Thank you.
I think when it says equality, it goes for equality, reduce inequalities, facilitate participation, non-discrimination, all that are like overall motherhood statements to cover freedom of individuals. It does not say anywhere specifically about the freedom of religion, but it says about freedom of non-discrimination.
So number 12 will cover it, is it?
Yes.
Is that what you say?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a very specific question for SDG number 12. It's about food waste. Also, this is something that I've been only recently exposed. My understanding is that most of the food waste here in Malaysia comes from restaurants, especially when there's a lot of leftover foods. Some people may argue that we can use this food, we can give it to the poor, we can give it to someone else who needs it. But there's one problem to this issue is that restaurants are afraid of taking the risk when they're giving out this food. Consumers may come under the risk of being sick because there's no guarantee that the food is still safe to eat or not. So, because of the cost that comes from this, has anyone ever proposed any solution or any idea to counter this risk? That's my question.
Actually, really good question. In UK, they started like something called Too Good To Go. I'm not sure if it exists in Malaysia. Like you, for example, super simple, like Starbucks and coffee shops and these type of places, actually even restaurants as well, when they have food where the time is about to pass, they reduce the price and sell it, and you take it with your own risk. So people can get ill, but basically in the agreement when you're buying it, you say that you won't be, taking any lawsuit against them. So technically, has there been anything similar to that? If it's more precision. And it's so cheap. Love it in the UK.
There are a few restaurants, cafes that do it, like bakeries especially, after 6 p.m. Then, but that is quite small in amount. The big amounts are mainly from restaurants and from supermarkets. Yeah. So the restaurants, I don't know if they can reduce their stock. I mean, they already know roughly how much they can sell. Because if they throw away food, they are also losing money. So they should manage their food inventory better, hopefully. And also the supermarkets, a lot of things going expiring, they do sell much cheaper. And but I also know that there are a few groups in town who goes around to supermarkets to collect, and even to restaurants, some to collect whatever food they can collect and distribute. But it is not very effective yet. But in the meantime, it is up to individuals to manage. And even households, a lot of households also throw out food. Can you imagine you add up all the waste from every household? It comes to a lot as well. Yeah. So it's something like we should, at least we can take care of in our own homes as well.
Hi, Dr. Ling. James again. I would like to make reference to SDG goal number 1. We have to face the fact that if you want to achieve all these goals, we have to work very closely with the government of the day, because they have the political will is needed, and NGOs and even the legal fraternity. So I would like to share that our PMX, our Prime Minister, has openly make a commitment to totally eradicate hardcore poverty in Malaysia, and the number of households that's in this category is amount to the tune of 170,000 households, and he has taken quote unquote a political risk to commit himself to eradicate this in Malaysia by the end of this year. So it just demonstrates that political will is definitely needed to actually achieve and sustain all these goals. And second reference is made to the second SDG. The economic minister, Rafizi, he has actually floated some very good ideas and is implementing it. He's actually advocating and going to implement vertical farming and hydroponic farming in a big scale. Because the food bill that we import is very big, And this is definitely an opportunity for us to ensure Malaysia has enough food for itself. And I would like to make also a reference to the fact that SDG 14, as you say, there's a personal dimension to actually make these goals achievable and achievable. The personal dimension. For example, for us in Malaysia and many countries in Southeast Asia, China, we love shark fin skin. There's a personal angle. You talk about conservation of the marine life, all this, and you should see the process, how they catch sharks and what they do with it. You will be very repulsive to you, and you want to stay away from it. How they just cut off the fin and throw the bodies into the ocean again. So there's a personal dimension, as Dr. Ling has said. There's a personal dimension to achieving these goals, and we need to make a personal commitment to them. Another thing very interesting is about this conservation and sustainable use oceans. That it's not mentioned about plastic waste. Plastic waste in the ocean, Dr. Ling. There's a huge circulation of plastic waste in the Pacific Ocean that actually kill a lot of marine life, kill a lot of plankton, and plankton is the basic food for a lot of marine life. And a lot of birds, migratory birds, they cannot distinguish plastic and the natural elements. When they consume it, they will die. So I think this just share some of this viewpoint. Yeah.
That was the final one because we have to move to the next one. There is actually one more presentation by Dr. Lim. We have to break by 1, so 12:40. So sorry.
Okay. Thank you, James, for the comments. So the hardcore poor, they actually it is the government wanted to reduce poverty even from 1971, the new economic policy. There are two prongs. One is to restructure society, the other one is to eradicate poverty. It's now been for 60 years, We still have a lot of poor people, and to eradicate hardcore poor is not the first time mentioned by PMX. Last year, 2-3 years back, when Dr. was Minister of Economic Affairs, he set up a group. I was also in the group. It's called the Poverty Circle. So he also wanted to eradicate hardcore poor in 1 year, 130,000 of them. So he mobilized all the state governments, all the DOs, ICU, all the departments, and even the religious department to go and identify all these hardcore poor people, and we gathered them together in towns all over the country. And then when they came, so Dr. told them he wants to train them, enable them, help them start business, and all these agencies are there to help them, whether it is commercial, it is agriculture, it's fishing, whatever, livestock. So, but then, I don't know whether the approach is right, because sometimes one group is like 7, 8 very poor people, and 20 over government officials sitting there and saying, we are coming here to help you. Tell us what you want. And then the thing is, after all the meeting, after all the talking, the poor people there, they said, we don't want all these projects, what. All we want is money every month. You see? So there are many dimensions to it. Some are willing and want to work hard to earn money, and some are like this. They said, we just want we just want money every month. You give us that, we are happy. So it is a very complicated way, a complicated scenario. But then the point is, those who are willing to work hard and want to make a good living, they are the ones who are not in the poor group anymore. They would have advanced. So you have some groups which are like that. But we are still trying, of course. And then, of course, there are big groups of single mothers. abandoned mothers, unlawful mothers, and they are having a very, very hard time in the country. They have children, they can't go out and work, they have no income, and they have no, what you call, the husband is not paying maintenance. So it is, we do all these projects in our APPGM. We have 500 projects now on the ground. And one of the main issues are single mothers. So we teach them how to make cakes, how to sew, how to make business, how to do all sorts of things, at least to earn something to feed their children. So it has so many dimensions, and we are trying to tackle it, bit by bit, constitution by constituency by constituency. And of course, the government has a lot of programs, a lot of aid, a lot of things. But sometimes, like the social welfare, they have 120 over social welfare programs to give out to the poor, to the handicapped, to the all kinds of vulnerable people. But sometimes they are not properly implemented. A big problem is service delivery. And some are getting multiple aid, and some of the very poor are getting nothing. The very poor, some are really falling through the cracks. They have no address, no telephone, no bank account, and nobody cares. So, when you work in this area long enough, you will see how desperate some are, and also social welfare department will only entertain people who come and report. Those who are stuck somewhere, abandoned, that one nobody takes care. And then the ICU database on the poor, that database is only is developed after the social welfare department has approved, and until ICU and the DO has approved and kind of certified that he's a poor person before it gets to the ICU database. So a lot are still left outside. And then you have the informal workers. They are self-employed. They have very small little hawker store or somewhere. They are completely out of the main social protection system. So it is we still have a lot of work to do. And the other thing you're mentioning about, of course, vertical farming and all that, that one is definitely excellent. It has to be multiplied. We are also doing some projects in some constituencies, and of course the personal habit, that one, it is our responsibility for all of us. And plastic waste and all that is covered under waste. So that one is, of course, a humongous problem, and everybody has to tackle that. Otherwise, we're going to destroy the oceans and the planet. Thank you. Right, do you need to stand up and stretch a bit? I still have another module to go.
Is it okay if I ask one last question regarding this? Can we go to the slide? SDG 3.
Yes.
So it says here, good health and well-being, and also ensure healthy lives to all of the people. Well, in Malaysia, one positive thing I want to mention here is all Malaysians get almost free healthcare by the government. And recently, if you all heard, PrEP, pre-prophylaxis exposure, is being offered free to the targeted group of people. That's very good to hear. Only for three states that's against PrEP, which is Perlis, Kuala Terengganu, and Kelantan, of course. That has to do with religious department. Okay, so my question is that there's about 80,000 of PLH-HIV, person affected with HIV in Malaysia currently, and I'm talking about insurance. So insurance in Malaysia do not cover those people who are living with the HIV, and I see that it is a inequality of coverage over here. And how do we address this issue? I mean, for the cancer, those insurance companies cover them, but for PLHIV, they do not cover them. But in the US, in the UK, they already do insurance for the PLHIV. So I just want to get your view on this.
Well, I think that they are well taken care of by our health systems. And there are some NGOs which are really helping them. So I think for a long time now, for decades, they are well taken care of by NGOs, by the health ministry, and they have a lot of programs for them. Then what they call injection of drugs, they are giving them all kinds of other assistance as well. I think it's been working well, but we still have this 80,000 there who need constant medication and care and all that. The point is the awareness. We have to prevent any more from happening, and this is because this is something that is voluntary. They knowingly go into it. Of course, some do not know that they are having a HIV positive partner, but the thing is, these are human choices, human behavior, all that. And I think they're well taken care of by the health services. But regarding insurance is a business. If they can make money from it, they would. So to me, insurance is a purely business decision. So it's up to the insurance company whether they want to sell insurance to these people or not. I mean, apart of course from the religious the religious parties that are not allowing treatment. You see, they are not allowing treatment for their own people in their own state. So what does it say about that? You see? Yeah. So these are separate issues, which I feel that, these are all human decisions.
Don't you think that the insurance company is
inequality of treatment?
Yeah, as I said, it is a business decision. There are some business who won't sell to certain people. There are some business who are only catering for certain groups. So this is, I feel, is a purely business decision.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We have to rush, guys. We are almost lunchtime, so we still have one more.
Yeah, now we are going to the SDGs 16. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. There are 12 targets and 23 indicators. So it is to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, access to justice for all, effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. So from the sound of it, you will know that there's a lot for us to do. So the first target is to reduce all forms of violence and related deaths everywhere. So death and atrocities inflicted as a result of war, happening in Ukraine, Yemen, Sudan, and other countries, that is really terrible and cause a lot of suffering. In Malaysia, we are very lucky to be peaceful, but for us, I think we need to concentrate on having law and order to ensure internal security and safety, and to safeguard social and economic well-being of our people. And target 16.2 and abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence against and torture of children. So, an indicator 16.2.1 wants us to measure the proportion of children aged 1 to 17 who experience any physical punishment or psychological aggression by caregivers. So, the reported number of child abuse in Malaysia is about trending up to more than 1,000 a year, but this is only the tip of the iceberg because children do not know how to report abuse. So, and in 2000, for example, in 2016 alone, nearly 5,000 children were reported by the Social Welfare Department to need protection from abuse. And it includes all types of physical or emotional ill treatment, sexual abuse, negligence, commercial or other exploitation, which results in actual or potential harm to the child's health, survival, long-term effect on physical and emotional health and well-being. And physical abuse is most common at 55%, sexual abuse at 40%, and the rest are emotional abuse. And the most common perpetrators are biological parents at 30%, babysitters at 26%. And child abuse also occurs in nurseries. And child abuse death is now at alarming level. It is the second highest cause of child homicide at 23% in 2021. And indicator 16.22, number of victims of human trafficking by sex, age, and form of exploitation. There definitely is abuse, exploitation, and trafficking of foreign workers by both private and public sectors. Malaysia has about 2 million legal foreign workers and about 4 million illegal workers. And for many years, Malaysia was in the lowest tier 3 on the watch list of US trafficking in persons. And Malaysia has been upgraded to tier 2 this year, but the US authorities still say that Malaysia has still not met the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking, but is making significant effort. And target 16.3, promote rule of law at national and international levels and ensure equal access to justice for all. 16.3.2 wants to measure the unsentenced detainees as a proportion of overall prison population. As of February this year, prison population was at about 72,000. 41 were pre-trial and remand prisoners. That means they have not been sentenced, they are just in prison. And of which 18.3% were foreigners. And prison capacity is 110, which is really overcrowded. And the Immigration and Customs Enforcement held 29,000 in detention this year in June. 63% of which have no criminal record, and many more have only minor offences, including traffic violations. And in 2022, 150 foreigners, including 25 women and 7 children, died in detention. And undocumented foreigners were detained for long periods as they await deportation, while refugees and asylum workers who do not want to return home are held indefinitely. And Malaysia does not recognize refugees and has denied UNHCR access to the detention centers, hampering efforts to release and resettle them. Malaysia's detention centers are crowded and unhygienic, and detainees have inadequate access to food, water, and healthcare. Indicator 16.3.3, proportion of population would have experienced dispute and who assess formal or informal dispute resolutions. There have been pro pro bono assistance provided by NGOs. Now the National Legal Aid Foundation is being stepped up to assist the poor get legal representation. However, there's a need to promote awareness, as many are unaware or ignorant that they can seek help. 16.4, reduce illicit financial and arms flow, strengthen recovery, return of stolen assets. So the Global Financial Integrity Report estimated that the Malaysia lost between 22.9 billion and 33.7 billion in illicit outflows from 2006 to 2015. And some of the sources of the illicit money are trade misinvoicing, human trafficking, corruption, tax evasion, criminal syndicates, drugs, and smuggling. This is a lot of money trafficked out of Malaysia for a very small country. And for Malaysia, is the 5th among all countries for illicit capital outflow after China, Russia, Mexico, and India. But we are number 1 on a per capita basis. So Malaysia boleh. So we account for about 6% of total outflows of all developing countries. This large amount of money could have provided funds for sustainable economic growth, creating more jobs, reducing inequality, and addressing the climate change crisis. So we also know about the Panama Papers. No action has been taken. And 16.5, reduce corruption and bribery. According to EMEA research, the loss to Malaysia due to corruption could be a staggering 4.5 trillion ringgit over the last 26 years. And it has profound impact on our social economic life. Corruption also erodes trust in the public sector. It wastes taxes meant for important projects. It results in poor quality services or infrastructure, or projects never getting off the ground. And our good example, of course, is the 1MDB, largest kleptocracy case to date in the world. So 16.6, develop effective and accountable and transparent institutions at all levels. Reforms are needed to reduce the concentration of power in the Prime Minister's office and the executive, that means all the ministers, and to improve fiscal management and make procurement more transparent, because a very big leakage is through procurement of government services and goods. And then for the legislature, the judiciary, reforms should be aimed at enhancing the role and autonomy of Parliament and the lawmaking process by giving more resources to Parliament and the establishment and greater use of the parliamentary select committees and the PSC. And the PSCs can be used for major public appointments for agencies such as the Judiciary, the Attorney General, the EC, the Royal Police Commission, and the Anti-Corruption MACC, in order to reduce the influence of elected politicians on such agencies. Because if the politicians are to appoint them, they will definitely be on their side. 16.7, ensure responsive, inclusive, participatory, and representative decision making. So in Parliament, we have women hold about 15% of the seats in Dewan Rakyat, 15% in Dewan Negara. So it's very, very low level, 15%. Civil service, women hold 38.2% of decision-making positions of Dusasi and above. That is quite high. And women representation in the top 10 public listed companies, currently at 25.8%. So the target is 30%. And but then the representation from all of us, the citizens, the representation of voters' voice in Parliament is skewed due to gerrymandering and malapportionment in the electoral system. ranging from 40,000 to 300,000 voters in constituencies. So it is a very unequal value of votes from the citizens. 16.9, provide legal identity for all, including birth registration. In 2016, the then Home Minister Zahid said that there were at least 290,000 stateless children in Malaysia. That is a very, very high number. And there are at least 10,000 people in West Malaysia who are denied citizenship with unknown number in East Malaysia. Those who become stateless in Malaysia are largely due to lack of legal identification documents, such as birth certificates or marriage certificates from their parents, and gender inequality in our laws. Without citizenship, stateless people have no legal protection, no right to vote, lack access to education, employment, health care, registration of birth, marriage or death, and property rights, land ownership, and job opportunity. They may also be at risk of exploitation and abuse. 16.10, ensure public access to information, protect fundamental freedoms. Number of verified cases of killing, kidnapping and forced disappearance, arbitrary detention and torture of journalists, associated media personnel, trade unionists and human rights advocates. There has been a number of enforced disappearances, including Pastor Raymond Ho and Amri Jekmat. So Hakam concluded on the 3rd April 2019, after a public inquiry, that Amri, an activist, and Pastor Raymond Ho were victims of enforced disappearance in the hands of the police special branch. But nothing was done after that. And Malay pastor Joshua Hilmi and his wife Ruth went missing at about the same time, but there has been no police effort made to find them. And there are other such cases. The ISA and SOSMA laws also prescribes detention without trial. 16.10.2, implement constitutional statutory or policy guarantees for public access to information. The Official Secrets Act 1972 was enacted purposely to preserve certain documents which are officially secret to the government. And the purpose of the Printing Presses and Publications Act 1984 is to control all types of publications, whether printed in the country or imported from abroad. And 16A and B are how we should implement all these other SDG 16s. So 16A is to strengthen relevant national institutions, including through international cooperation for building capacity at all levels to prevent violence, combat terrorism and crime. And the indicator is the existence of independent national human rights institutions in compliance with the Paris principles. So as I said before, Hakam was set up in 2000 under the Human Rights Commission Act and has been considered toothless, as its recommendations were not heeded. Their annual reports were tabled only twice in Parliament, and it was proposed that the Act be amended to give Suhakam greater independence from the executive branch, and that nomination of commissioners be undertaken by a PSC. And it also needs strengthening existing laws to compel agencies to implement Suhakam's inquiry findings. 16B, promote and enforce non-discriminatory laws and policies for sustainable development. Proportion of population reporting personally felt discriminated against or harassed on the basis of law of discrimination prohibited under the International Human Rights Law. So the decades of race and religious politicization and rhetoric has led to disunity among the citizens, discrimination, brain drain, capital outflow, and poor human resource development. that negatively impacts the development of the nation, and Malaysia is being left further and further behind by our neighbors. It is crucial to have an inclusive and participatory approach to development to counteract the destabilizing impact of marginalization and exclusion. So now we have passed the midway point of the SDG 2030. It started in 2015 and ends in 2030. So we are now past the midway point. Much has been done and reported on the implementation of all the other SDGs. We talk about poverty, we talk about food production, we talk about health, climate change, environment. Many things have been done and many things have been reported. But SDG 16 has not been mainstream. Nobody is taking care of it. And it's now very urgent for us to take it up seriously, or it will negatively affect the SDGs of all the other SDGs, the achievement of all the other SDGs. So to meet SDG 16 by 2030, action is needed to restore trust and to strengthen the capacity of institutions. Without good governance, efforts to improve human well-being outlined in the other 16 SDGs would be difficult to realize. So, in conclusion, SDG 16 acts as an enabler and accelerator for all SDGs and is key to achieving Agenda 2030 agenda. Without peace, respect for human rights, and rule of law, development gains are hampered or reversed. And without inclusion and access to justice for all, inequalities in poverty reduction and socio-economic development will increase, and our commitments to leaving no one behind will not be met. The success of all the SDGs requires us to unlock the full potential of SDG 16 to catalyze social transformation, and we still have a long way to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Lim. It's 1:08, maybe 6 minutes for Q&A, then we go for lunch. Okay? Maybe just take any burning questions. Any questions? You sir are very, you're a questioner. I'll go behind the of you.
Hello, good afternoon. Given all the limited resources that the government, given everyone, the society has in general, what are let's say if you can line it up, what are the 3 most important SDGs that we should prioritize the most, especially in terms of resource allocations? Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the question. It boils down again to governance and service delivery. Every year we have very big budget. The government gives out big budget for all the sectors. But, a big portion of it goes to loan service. And that is not even to pay capital, the debt proper, but the interest. So it is, because of all these years of corruption and leakages and poor implementation, poor governance, we have come up with so much debt that we have to be servicing for decades to come. And then another big portion of the budget goes to the civil service. We have a very big civil service of 1.7 million people for a population of 32 million. So it is quite a bloated civil service, and if we can have good service from that, it is one thing. Most of the time, service delivery is poor. So, there's a lot of, more than half already of the budget goes to all this. And then we have a development budget, which is not enough, and we have to borrow more for development. And that adds to our debt as well. So whatever you borrow for development has to really give a ROI of much higher than the cost of your financing. So the governance would be top priority. That's why you know, SDG 16 is very important because it covers the whole ecosystem of how everything is developed and delivered in the country. If we can have strong, transparent, accountable, and competent institutions, we wouldn't be in the situation we are today. We have been, concentrating on, the politicians have been concentrating on garnering power and support through, race and religion all the time. Because all they care about is their own power and their own interests, and not about the interests of the entire country. So governance would be number one. And then you have to strengthen, reform all the institutions to implement everything well and properly. And then, of course, I think a big part of it is education. Education is actually what makes up the human resource of a country. If, when people are not well educated, you leave them, that's how Malaysia gets left behind. And then you have, graduates, a few 100,000 a year, 300,000 a year come out and be unemployed. You have a lot of people not skilled, even though we have 1,000 TVET centers. What are they learning? Why are they coming out? Why are they not attracting people? Why are they not coming out with skills that can command higher pay? And all this politicization thing has caused a lot of damage to Malaysia. So I would come back to governance, strong institutions, rule of law, and proper priorities for development. And then everything else will fall into place. Once you have all these proper governance, you will want to have good education, you want to have good healthcare, you want to have good environmental policies, you want to have the state governments, trying to also, follow good policies to protect their own states. Because now everybody is like, all for themselves, trying to get money, cutting down the forest, doing all sorts of things for self-interest. So a lot of all these things comes down to governance. And I'm sure PMX is trying to do his best, but he can't do it immediately. And I hope that all of us will also, I think it also boils down to the voters. We get the government that we choose for, that we voted for, So again, people should be educated and take personal responsibility to ensure that the country progresses in the right manner.
Yeah, doctor answered my question already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last one, yeah, last one. Last one.
Darling, thank you again. Darling, I'm an optimist because I look at your presentation on Suhakam. Suhakam was set up in year 2000. There's no presentation of report allowed in the parliament, but when there was a change in government in 2018, and recently with the new government, we had a report presented 2019, 2023. I think we cannot escape from the fact that the government of the day will be largely responsible to exert the political will to institute change in this aspect, SDG goals. Because they are very macro goals that need a lot of resources and it galvanizes the whole nation. So I think one of the root causes or one of the trigger point catalysts that can make real change, revolution in Malaysia is to make sure that Suhakam does not remain toothless. Suhakam must not remain toothless. So I'm optimistic because we have made progress. We set up Suhakam in 2000. We make very good change, step change in 2019, 2023. I think we must start pushing and struggling and talk to the government of the day, the people who are more open, politically open, to give teeth, to give bite, to make Suhakam a roaring tiger with a very strong teeth so that it can trigger revolutionary change, with a catalyst of change in this important human rights aspect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, James, for your very optimistic outlook. You know, that's why we really need to change the law, to strengthen the law, to let the appointment of commissioners be made by the PSC. And currently, it is made by a committee under the Ministry of Law. It's by politicians and government servants. So imagine they have appointed this Rahmat as the chairman of Suhakam, and he had previously voted. He has advised the Agong against the Rome Statute, against the ISA, and this kind of person becomes the head of Suhakam. So what do you expect? You see, so appointment of this kind of people need to be done by neutral parties and not by the executive. Isn't it a big anomaly to appoint someone like that to be chair of Suhakam? Yeah, that's why there are so many things we need to overcome in order to put things in proper place. Like that's why I mentioned governance. This is part of governance. If you let the executive control the appointment of all these chair, all the heads of these agencies, then they will of course go the line of the people who appoint them.
All right, thank you so much. That is a very important note that we can totally add on. Before I tell you about lunch, our Kumarin, which is our next presenter, has a quick 1 minute question.
Okay.
Yeah, Kumarin, go ahead.
So I know you are very hungry, so just want to check how many of you all, I should ask, don't have smartphone here? Because are there anyone without smartphone here? Everybody has a smartphone? You all have data coverage? Okay, so we're going to do something with your activity for the next session. So everybody has a smartphone or laptop with a network connection? Hello? Okay, thank you. Right. Anyone here do not understand Malay at all? Sikit-sikit? Okay, so I have to use completely English, but sometimes is it okay for me to use Malay a bit here and there? And we'll get somebody to translate for you. Is it okay? Right, so I will be conducting the next session so we can have a long chat later. So that session will be more like a leisure and interactive. So I hope you'll come back with full energy, 5 out of 5. Is it okay? Thank you.
Okay. Before I give Dr. Lin a round of applause, amazing seminar. Amazing seminar from morning to afternoon. Okay, lunch is at the lobby. Lobby is a bit weird, right? I think they call it first floor instead of G. Level 1, correct. Yeah. Level 1 is the lobby. Go to the cafe. I mentioned PROHAM SDG workshop. We have a cordon off section of the restaurant just for us. So go down to the lobby, go to the cafe. There's a cafe, I think, park at the. You will know lah. When you see the cafe restaurant, you will know that is where you're supposed to be. Okay, before we do that, come back here by 2:10. Okay, kasih chance sikit lah, boleh ya? 2:10. Okay, for Muslims that want to pray, there's a surah on this very floor in the toilets. But come back here by 2:10, and we took your picture already. So if you don't come back, we know who didn't come back lah. Tantoy. Okay, so 2:10, come back here.